In this video, we'll be creating our NestJS application. And in case you've been following this channel, you know that we don't like to leave you confused. So we'll take you from explaining the folder structure of a NestJS application and also building a Mini To app just to help you understand how to go about building some CRUD operations. Okay, so now let's get to the actual code. What you need is, before you actually create your projects, is to run this npm install -g, which is for global, and then this @nestjs.cli, because you need the NestJS CLI, right, to run your Nest CLI commands. And then once that's actually installed, to create your project, you need to run nest new, right, and then the actual name of your actual project. So I'm running a to-do API. So this is what I'm creating. It's going to ask you which package manager do you want to use. I'm going to say npm. So what's going to happen is it's going to create my actual project and run some installation, so the packages that needs to be installed. So let me take you through like a couple of things. So here we've got this nest CLI JSON. So this has like specific like configs, which actually the NestJS CLI checks out when you run like the CLI commands. And then we've got like our package JSON file. This is where our actual packages or dependencies are located that are actually installed in the actual application. Then we've got this ts config. So because NestJS runs TypeScript, right? So this file is responsible for actually compiling our TypeScript code to JavaScript, basically, in simple terms. Then we've got like this test. I'm not going to dwell too much on this because this is for like our actual end-to-end tests. So this is where like our end-to-end tests actually live. And we've got the source file, right? So you'll see here in the source we've got this app dot something, right? So this is for the actual application. So if you've got like users or something, it's going to say users.service, users.modules, and so forth, right? But let me actually start sharing the main.ts. So this is the entry point of our actual application, right? So what happens here is when we run our NestJS application, this is where it actually enters, right? And specifies that create, right, this application and then run this app module, right? And then this is listening from port 3000. Okay, so now let's go ahead and actually see what's in here. So we've got like our apps.controllers. This is where our endpoints actually live. So you'll specify your specific like endpoints in here in your controllers. And then we've got like our services. So our apps.service, this is where all our business logic is gonna lie, right? And then we've got like our actual modules. So this is where we just modularize everything, right? So that we can use these modules, right, to actually be imported in other modules, basically. So yeah, that's just basically it. So now what I want to do is actually run like a command in here, which is just nest dash g. You'll see some okay, now that I've actually explained the folder structure, now let me just generate like a resource. So what I'll need to do is I just want to open up this project. So I'm just gonna say API that, just open this up. Okay, then I'm just gonna open up this terminal again. So what I want to run is this command, which is nest generate, and then this is resource, and I want to generate like a to-do resource. So it's gonna ask me like some questions, right? So it says, what transport layer do you want to use? I'm gonna say REST API, and then it's gonna say, would you like to generate a CRUD entry point? I'm just gonna say yes for that. And yeah, so there's a couple of things that it actually created for me. So now let me just go to the source, and you'll see I've got this folder over here, right? So in here I've got this to do, I've got my DTOs, my entities, Normally here, these are going to be like sort of like my tables. It's going to create controllers, module services, and so forth, right? Okay, so what do I want to do, right? So if I go in here, I'm going to have like in my services, I'm going to create, find all my to-dos. I'm going to have like find one to do and then update and remove. Okay, so let me just first go to my actual DTO, my create DTO. So this is a to do. I'm going to say when I have an item which is of type string, and that's the only thing that I need to do right there, right? So in here I'm gonna have like an update to do. So within my update to do, I want to specify my actual ID, right? I want to say this is an ID. I want to have like an item. Well, the item is going to be there because this extends a partial of that create to do. And so I guess I just need to have like an item, and that's just it. I think I just need the ID. I think that's just, yeah, cool. Okay, awesome. And then now in my entities, what I'm gonna have is this ID item, which is also like a string, created date, which is also like a string, well, not a string, like a date. So this is gonna be a date, updated date. Well, awesome. So I wanna install like a UUID. Wanna install this package. So that should be fine. And yeah, okay, so now let's just go to my actual to-do service. So here I'm just gonna have like, because I'm not gonna use like a database or something, right? So this is just gonna use in memory. So this is gonna be to-dos, which is from my to-do entity. So this is my actual to-do entity, which is just an array of to-dos, right? Awesome. So what do I want to do in here, right? So I want to create actual to-do. So how I go about doing that is I'm going to say const new to-do, which is of type of a to-do. Okay, can just hover on this and add all missing. Okay, so here I can just import from UID. Just gonna say v4 as UUID v4. Okay, so now I can just use this. Okay, this is just gonna create like UUID as a string. Then in my create to do, I'm just gonna pass in this item. This is just gonna say a new date, and this is gonna take in a new date as well. Okay, awesome. And maybe I want to pass that in there, and then maybe I'll say to-dos dot push to do. Okay, this is a new to do. Awesome. So that's what I need in there. So just to run this app, I just need to run npm start dev. So in dev mode, this is just gonna watch every change. So if I change and save, it's gonna hot reload. Okay, so now once I've actually saved that up, if I go ahead now in here, so I'm gonna go in here, so this is gonna be for my actual create. So this is just gonna say this is a to-do, because if I go to my actual controller, let's just show you something. So if this is this controller which says / to do, right, and then this is just the post which has just an empty path. So if I say this is a post method to do, right, and then in here I'm just gonna pass in like bread as a JSON. So if I just hit that, okay, let me just close this up. Okay, so if I hit that up, you'll see that it actually created my actual item, right, which is a to-do. So it added that in that list. So now let's just, sorry, my bad. So now let me just go back in here and run this get all to do. So for my get all to do's, what I'm just gonna pass here is just this dot to do's. This is just gonna get all my to do's, and that's just all. So now if I go back in here, save this up, if I do this, because I've actually saved it up, if I get all my to do, let's see, there's nothing, right? Because I actually saved. Once I've saved, the actual stuff that was in memory is just going to be refreshed. So now if I run this again and then run this, you'll actually see that I've got the item that I've actually added up. Okay, so now that I've got find all, now let me just have this. Okay, so what do I want to do in here, right? So I want to have like an index, because the first thing that I want to do is say find this index. So from to do's, from this dot to do, I want to find index. Do I really want to say find index? Now I can just say a to do, right? And I can say use a find. Okay, so x.id is triple equal to this id. So if this, right, so if that's now, then I just want to throw a new not found exception, right? Can this item does not exist. Okay, and then else, then I just want to just show this. Okay, so I guess that's it there. So the same thing will apply here, but instead of that, I'm just going to use this update.id. Let me see. So I'm just going to use this update.id. Okay, and if that, I'm just going to say cannot update a item that does not exist. Okay, so now else, if it actually exists, what I want to do is I want to say find index, right? So I'm just gonna use an index here just to make my life easier. Index, if the index is just less than 0, okay, and then now I can just say this from these to do's index, right? So what I want to change is the moment, so the moment I get that, I want to change the item to be this update dot the item that I'm going to pass in, right? And also the updated date, because once I've actually updated it, I want to pass in like the new updated date. Okay, and then this dot to do, so this is to do's dot index. Okay, interesting. So now that's fine. Okay, here I'm just gonna have like a string, but I can see that I've actually encountered like an error. So if I go to my actual controls in here, just need to remove this guy, and then I also need to remove this, right? Then I can just also remove that. Okay, so this is fine for now. Then instead of patch, I'm just gonna use put. I'm gonna use a put for that update, and I don't need this guy. Okay, awesome. Then for the delete, I can just remove this and go ahead and actually implement the delete. So for delete, I'm going to use the same thing. So instead of that, I'm just going to use this. And then I'm going to say cannot remove an item that does not exist. Okay, awesome. And if it does exist, what I'm just going to do is todos.splice, right, the index, and then just pass in that first, delete the first one, right? And const removed to do. This is gonna say to dos because I want to just maybe display the removed to do. I think that should do the trick. So what will happen is, so here with the find one, if it doesn't exist, it's just gonna throw like not found, right? A not found exception, not found exception, and then for the updates, it's just gonna do the updates and stuff. So now let's go ahead and actually try this out. So let me add something. So I'm gonna add this, add bread, maybe cheese. Okay, and then let me just get my list of to-dos. So now if I were to run this guy, okay, maybe let me just zoom out a bit. So you'll see that in my list here, I've got bread and cheese, right? So now if I go ahead in this get, so I'm just gonna say get by ID. If I run this, this is gonna throw this 404 not found, right? But if I were to then just copy this ID, paste it in here, and run this, this will just then return that specific item. If now I were to go to the actual delete and run this guy, it's gonna say cannot delete something that doesn't exist, right? Okay, then if now I were to run this guy, okay, well, I think I ran the wrong command. So if I just run this, you'll see, because this doesn't exist, right? It's gonna throw that error. If I run the correct ID, then it's just gonna remove that. So if now I go to my actual to-dos, get all, now I've got one to do because I actually removed the other one. So now let's just also have like a put or an update. So this is just gonna run that put, and then this is HTTP, right, port 3000. Okay, this is running roar JSON, so I need to pass in the ID. So this ID needs to be for this ID, and then I also need to pass in the item. So this item is now milk. Okay, now if I were to update this, this says this doesn't exist, right? So what I need to do is actually, so if I get all my to-dos, right, this bread one, now if I go ahead in this guy and actually modify this ID to this, save, and then run this, you'll see that it actually updated. Now if I get all my list of to-dos, you'll see that instead of this being bread, now it's actually updated and also changed the time. So if hence you can see now the created date and the updated date is not the same. So yeah, basically this is like Mini To Do API that was created in like what, 16 minutes. That's not really bad. This is the end of this video. Guess we've actually created like our first NestJS application, and we've actually added like some nice to do API, right? So yeah, if you actually liked this video, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, peace.